Have you ever wondered how a simple traffic stop can suddenly spiral into something dangerous, even when you know you've done nothing wrong? 1 second you're answering questions. The next your heart is racing and the officer's tone has completely changed. Most gun owners assume that if something goes bad, courts only look at the exact second force was used. That assumption is outdated. After Barnes versus Felix, courts no longer judge police force in isolation. Everything leading up to it matters, and your calm, deliberate behavior can now legally protect you. That single shift has changed how gun owners must handle police encounters in 2025 and beyond. Today, I'll break down 5 new rules every gun owner must understand so your words, movements, and decisions work in your favor, not against you, if an officer starts escalating a stop. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and keep watching. Rule 1. Your movements can define the threat. When police review a use of force case, one of the first questions courts ask is simple. What did the officer think the person was about to do? For gun owners, this matters more than almost anything else. Your movements, even innocent ones, can shape that answer in seconds. After Barnes versus Felix, courts must look at everything that happened before force was used, including how you moved, where your hands were, and whether your actions looked predictable or chaotic. The legal foundation for this comes from the Supreme Court case Graham versus Connor, 1989. That case set the standard that police force is judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene. In plain terms, courts ask whether an officer could reasonably believe someone posed an immediate danger based on what they observed at the time. Fast hands, reaching into hidden areas, or sudden shifts in posture often get interpreted as a possible grab for a weapon, especially during traffic stops. For a gun owner, this creates a clear rule. Hands visible, movement slow, every action explained before it happens. If you reach for a wallet, say it first. If paperwork sits in the glove box, ask for permission before opening it. This approach removes guesswork from the encounter. It shows control, awareness, and cooperation without surrendering your rights. Under the new legal landscape after Barnes, calm behavior becomes evidence. Body cameras, dash cameras, and witnesses now capture whether you acted carefully or unpredictably. If an officer later claims you appeared threatening, video showing deliberate movements can directly contradict that story. The goal here is survival first and protection later. When your movements stay measured and visible, you reduce the chance of escalation and strengthen your legal position if things still go wrong. Rule 2. Minor stops don't justify major force. Many gun owners believe that once a police officer escalates a stop, the law automatically supports whatever happens next. That belief causes people to panic and make poor decisions. After Barnes versus Felix, courts now focus heavily on how serious the original stop actually was and whether escalation made sense at every stage. This matters because most police encounters involving lawful gun owners begin with small issues like traffic violations, equipment problems, or paperwork questions. Courts have long recognized that force must align with the severity of the suspected offense. In Tennessee versus Garner, the Supreme Court made clear that deadly force carries a very high legal strategic advantage. Calm behavior keeps the encounter anchored to its original level. When an officer created the danger they later claimed required force. This shift places officer tactics under closer scrutiny. Courts examined way for positioning or escalated when patience was available. When officers had time to slow things down and chose risky actions instead, those choices now matter legally. Earlier cases like Kingsley versus Hendrickson reinforced this approach by allowing courts to consider whether officers attempted to reduce force or manage encounters safely. After Barnes, that analysis expanded further. Officer behavior before escalation now shapes whether force appears reasonable or reckless. Gun owners can use this reality without confrontation. Clear, calm communication places responsibility back on law enforcement. Statements asking for instructions create structure and reduce ambiguity. Cameras capture whether officers provided guidance or created confusion. Your steady conduct highlights mistakes without arguing or resisting. When officers fail to give warnings, provide unclear commands, or escalate abruptly, those errors stand out clearly against your composed behavior. Courts now weigh those contrasts seriously. The goal remains survival and legal protection. When you stay controlled and cooperative, any officer missteps become visible evidence. Under current law, those missteps no longer vanish from the courtroom narrative. If this breakdown is helping you, take a second to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Rule 4. Running or resisting changes everything is attempting to escape may assume a violent outcome could follow. That assumption shapes how courts later analyze the encounter. Even lawful carry loses relevance once flight enters the picture. The legal focus shifts toward preventing harm rather than examining the original reason for the stop. Resistance also carries serious consequences. Physical struggle, pulling away, or turning a disarm attempt into a contest gives officers a legal narrative built around safety concerns. Courts often view resistance as confirmation that control has been lost. Once that perception forms, options available to officers expand rapidly. There remains a critical distinction between passive noncompliance and active resistance. Silence, verbal objection, or remaining still while asserting rights do not carry the same legal consequences as physical struggle. Courts recognize this difference clearly. Active resistance involves movement, force, or attempts to break free. Passive behavior reflects disagreement without physical escalation. The safest legal strategy stays consistent. Compliance during the encounter preserves options later. Courts remain available to address wrongful stops, improper searches, or officer misconduct. Streets rarely provide that protection. Survival depends on reducing perceived risk in the moment. Flight and resistance collapse legal protections quickly. Remaining calm, stationary, and responsive keeps the encounter within a controllable legal framework. That choice protects life first and preserves accountability later. Rule 5. Force must match the moment, and alternatives matter. Use of force law revolves around balance. Courts ask whether the level of force matched the actual threat present at the time. After Barnes versus Felix, that question extends beyond the final second and includes whether officers ignored safer options that existed earlier. This shift strengthens protections for gun owners who behave calmly during tense encounters. Courts acknowledge that police work involves fast decisions under pressure. Officers receive latitude when situations evolve rapidly. Even so, proportionality remains central. Severe force requires severe threat. When a person stands still, follows instructions, and presents no aggressive behavior, courts expect restraint. Supreme Court rulings have clarified that officers need not select the absolute least intrusive option during emergencies. That standard still allows courts to ask whether obvious alternatives existed. Time, distance, cover, communication, and backup all matter. When these options were available and ignored, force appears harder to justify. For gun owners, behavior directly influences this analysis. Calm posture, visible hands, and clear communication reduce perceived urgency. Reduced urgency highlights alternatives officers could have chosen. Continued conversation, waiting for backup, or maintaining distance become reasonable expectations rather than theoretical possibilities. This dynamic places value on patience. Officers who rush toward armed individuals increase risk for everyone involved. Courts now examine whether those risks resulted from tactical choices rather than unavoidable danger. When officer actions create tension, responsibility may shift. Documentation strengthens this rule. Body cameras, dash cameras, and witnesses capture whether alternatives existed. Footage showing steady compliance undermines claims that force remained the only option. After Barnes, courts weigh such evidence carefully. Gun owners benefit by understanding one principle. Proportionality depends on perception. Perception depends on behavior. When actions remain controlled and predictable, heavy force looks excessive. That conclusion holds legal power. The goal remains consistent across all 5 rules. Stay alive. Stay calm. Preserve evidence. When proportionality fails and alternatives were available, accountability becomes possible through the legal system. Bonus tip: silence can be a protective tool when used correctly. One powerful protection many gun owners overlook during police encounters is controlled silence. Speaking less at the right moments can prevent misunderstandings, escalation, and legal complications later. This tip works alongside everything already discussed and becomes even more effective after Barnes versus Felix, where every word and action before force matters. During stressful encounters, people often talk to fill the silence. They explain, they justify, they ramble. While that reaction feels natural, it creates risk. Words spoken under stress can sound offensive, sarcastic, or inconsistent when replayed later in court. Officers also use statements to shape their perception of intent, confidence, or threat level. Silence does not mean hostility. Silence means choosing clarity over chaos. You can provide required information, such as identification, carry disclosure where required by law, and direct answers to safety-related instructions. Beyond that, unnecessary commentary adds little benefit. A calm, simple statement works best. For example, "I prefer to remain silent and would like legal counsel." This communicates cooperation without surrendering protection. Courts recognize this choice as a lawful exercise of rights, not defiance. Silence can slow encounters and reduce tension by removing cues that officers may misread as agitation. For gun owners, fewer words mean fewer risks. Calm posture and visible hands, paired with silence, protect your legal position if the encounter is later reviewed. Outro: understanding these rules gives you control when a police encounter starts to shift. Your movements, words, and restraint can shape how courts later view everything that happened. Knowledge keeps you safer in the moment and protected afterward. Stay informed, stay calm, and stay prepared. Subscribe to the channel and keep watching for more lawyer-approved guidance. Effective after Barnes versus Felix, where every word and action before force matters. During stressful encounters, people often talk to fill the silence. They explain, they justify, they ramble. While that reaction feels natural, it creates risk. Words spoken under stress can sound offensive, sarcastic, or inconsistent when replayed later in court. Officers also use statements to shape their perception of intent, confidence, or threat level. Silence does not mean hostility. Silence means choosing clarity over chaos. You can provide required information, such as identification, carry disclosure where required by law, and direct answers to safety-related instructions. Beyond that, unnecessary commentary adds little benefit. A calm, simple statement works best. For example, "I prefer to remain silent and would like legal counsel." This communicates cooperation without surrendering protection. Courts recognize this choice as a lawful exercise of rights, not defiance. Silence can slow encounters and reduce tension by removing cues that officers may misread as agitation. For gun owners, fewer words mean fewer risks. Calm posture and visible hands, paired with silence, protect your legal position if the encounter is later reviewed. Outro: understanding these rules gives you control when a police encounter starts to shift. Your movements, words, and restraint can shape how courts later view everything that happened. Knowledge keeps you safer in the moment and protected afterward. Stay informed, stay calm, and stay prepared. Subscribe to the channel and keep watching for more lawyer-approved guidance.